Hey guys, Shane here, Gabriella Plants. I know a lot of you guys, due to current events right now, do have kids at home. And I've been thinking a lot, working in the greenhouse this week. It's been a hot week here, on what we could do to provide value to you guys at home. And one of the things that I saw from a lot of my friends here in the Central Florida community is that their kids are home with them. And I think a lot of your guys in the plant community, a lot of your families already do have a great appreciation for plants, but I wanted to go ahead and make a few different videos throughout the next probably 2 weeks, just going over some basics on plant stuff, and hopefully it's something you can watch either with your kids or maybe just learn something new yourself. For those of you who don't know my backstory, I'm Shane. I run Gabriella Plants here. I'm third generation agriculture. Our entire greenhouse is about an acre in total size, and we grow roughly 60,000 plants a year. Right now there's about 28 to 30,000 plants, and we ship them all across the country. My degree though, even though I was third generation in agriculture, I grew up on a house on this same property, and my dad purchased that house from his dad. So I've definitely been here. I've grown up in it my entire life. But that being said, I didn't go to school for horticulture. Before I do get started though, I did want to share with you guys 2 resources that I've really been learning a lot myself as well. I've been learning a lot too, and I just wanted to real quick before we go over the purpose of today's video is just going to be a simple repotting. But we'll get into that. But real quick, I just wanted to go over the plant glossary. Now this is the 2nd edition. This is a great book. It goes over a lot of the proper terminology for different parts of plants. So especially as an educational resource and to, learn something new for yourself, like I said. The second book I've been spending a lot of time in, you can actually see my wife's notes here. This is Houseplants, the complete guide to choosing, growing, and caring for indoor plants. This one is less of a plant glossary, more of some how-tos on repotting, some how-tos on propagation, how to have pots with proper drainage. And then the second half of the book, it even has some stuff on propagation. And the second half of the book goes into different pests, more information like botanical names and areas of origin. We've been using this a lot. It's a really nice and concise view of a lot of care information about plants. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. So today I'm just going to do a simple repotting because it's probably the first thing you guys may want to do with some of your free time at home. So this is Philodendron Revolution. I would say it's similar to your Deja Vus or your Hopes or your Salome, which is what pretty much all these are, just different cultivars or different hybrids in the general area of Salome. Again, I don't have the formal knowledge that some may have, so feel free to put that in the comments. That being said, these really need some repotting. So if you have something that's super root bound, not always are you gonna have something as root bound as this. The reason I bring up the type of plant it is and the family it's in is really to say what size is next. Right now we have it in a 4-inch pot. I was kind of debating right as I was getting ready to film this, we could, if we were going to repot it for the purposes of reselling, try to ship everything in 4-inch because we don't ship bare root, we ship in pot with soil. We think it's healthier for the plant and it kind of helps us accomplish our mission as from our greenhouse to your home. We probably wouldn't otherwise step it to a bigger pot than a 6-inch, but because I'm not really going to be reselling these, I actually only have like 2 more I haven't stepped up yet. We're gonna go ahead and re-step them up into an 8-inch pot. I have another one right here that I did earlier today that I did put into a 10-inch pot. Again, just given the species and how big it's gonna get. Now, real quick, before we dive into the actual repotting, one thing to know, and those books would be a great resource to you as well on this, is you wanna make sure you're aware of the soil needs. And most of the time when people talk about soil needs of a plant, we're really talking about drainage more than we're doing anything else. So obviously, because we're in a greenhouse, we have the luxury, if you want to call it that, of, I believe, the high temperature. Yeah, I can see it right there. The high temperature today was 96 degrees in this greenhouse. So we tend to not have problems with soil not drying out. That being said, when it's in your home, you may choose to use a soil with more perlite or more filler in it and less peat, because in an indoor air-conditioned environment, you're probably not going to get that drying out as quickly as we would in a Florida greenhouse. That being said, half of that battle is obviously what soil you choose to use. Maybe we'll make that a video at some point. And the other half of that is drainage. A lot of fancier, especially ceramic pots, will only have a singular hole in the center or no drainage at all. Now, for a lot of the tropics, especially philodendrons and some of the rare items, they do not like what's known as wet feet or soil staying wet. They gain some oxygen from their roots beneath the soil. That being said, if you're going to use a pot that is ceramic without a hole, you can consider drilling a hole in it, or you can use things like gravel in the bottom. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that because one, I don't have as much experience in that, and number two, this is a demonstration of what we do in the greenhouse. I think that's fun. So anyhow, this is an 8-inch pot, obviously multiple drainage holes. So with any repotting, your first step, especially if you have something this root bound, you're going to want to make sure you're squeezing on the plant to kind of loosen up the corners and let it come out a little bit easier. So this one's going to be a little tricky. You can wiggle back and forth. Now, as you can see, this is very root bound. Now, if I was going to be putting this into the 6-inch pot, as we discussed, I would probably go through trying to break up the roots a little bit and loosen them. And that's obviously something you can do. Follow instructions for the particular plant that you want. Most of the time, I don't try to break up the smaller chunks of roots. I just try to get, if they do have any big ones like these at the bottom, I do try to break those up a little bit because those are going to be the ones that need the air the most. So that's a little bit more broken up there. Now again, I'm using a nursery pot, so we don't have to have any type of filler in the bottom. And the soil that we are using right now, this is not our main mix, it's just what I had. We're actually in between soil deliveries right now, funny enough. But this is a Old Castle, what's known as a C20 mix. It's 80% Canadian peat with 20% perlite. Now, when we go into some other philodendron categories, even like this philodendron, again, for indoor use, you probably want to add more perlite to give yourself better aeration, but this will continue. So let's go ahead and set this down here. I have some soil on the bottom of the pot there, and that's important because, again, you're going to be putting these bare roots right down in there, so you're going to want to give it a little bit. Now, it's important not to measure your height, so you're not going to want to bury a plant most of the time, depending on the species, but especially philodendrons, you're not going to want to bury this too much. You're really trying to give it more room to go down than you are trying to get it to grow up. So I'm actually going to put a little bit more dirt in here right now, again trying to get it to where, without pressing down firmly, I'm getting kind of the height I want. Now again, in the greenhouses, I have it about halfway fill right now. I am not going to fill it to the exact brim of the pot because I actually want to allow some water to be able to sit at the top. That's the easiest way to water it in. But to finish this up real quick, we're going to go ahead, loosely apply. Now this one is an aerial root, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave that on top. And he'll just sit right on there. And I'm going to fill in the rest of the soil there. Make a little bit of a mess, but sometimes it's good to get your hands dirty. Now sometimes, parents, if you do want to, we use gloves here in the greenhouse sometimes, especially for dealing with wet soil. Now, if you noticed, I was gently packing around, mainly just to give myself a realistic how far this is going to compact. So you can see here now we have the repotted plant, and last step is applying some fertilizer. So especially with it being spring here, we use granular Nutricoat, which is a 1868, and it's pretty neat. It has a special coating on it that only releases nutrients when water comes into contact with it. And you'll know if the fertilizer is spent if you can take one of these pellets. Sometimes they're different colors, they're not always gray, but if you can take it and squeeze it and not get any discolored pus looking liquid, but actually get a clear liquid out of it, that means the fertilizer has been expensed. So we're going to go ahead and the general recommendation as far as dosing is roughly 2 teaspoons per pot size. So being an 8-inch pot, we'll go ahead and give it, this is 1 tablespoon. So we'll go ahead and do that. This, you really don't need a whole lot of it. And it's always better, in my opinion, to sprinkle it all the way around the pot because your roots are going to be in different parts of the pot. So last step, I'm going to go ahead and set this here on the ground, and you're going to water it in. And obviously you don't want to over wet. It's always good the first day to just wet it a little bit and come back and add additional water the next day. You don't always have to add all the water all at the first time. So just like that, we have repotted a philodendron revolution. I hope this was fun. I hope that you will be able to gain something from this, maybe have some fun experiments with your kids. And hopefully I will have the time to do more of these videos in the coming weeks. Take care, guys.